All right, go right ahead. Again, this is Ann Wynn, the amazing new teacher for our program. She's going to be doing front-end web dev and database design. So excited to have her along. And yes, this is a constant confused look. Don't mistake that for her brilliance, her absolute brilliance. So go ahead and introduce yourself again.
Hey guys, um, I'm glad to be here. Can't wait to meet you guys next quarter. Um, and yeah, David's here and he is amazing. So can't wait to hear everything he has to say.
Awesome. Thanks, Anne. I'm glad you could join us, and thank you for letting me put you on the spot. I'm going to let her get revenge on me later. It's absolutely fine. Um, and yes, I'd like to now introduce David Selberg, our amazing friend, colleague, works with AWS, has an amazing journey. He's going to describe his experiences. Oh, and we got more people showing up. I love it. Hey, Manjula, well, welcome. Um,
Hey,
hey. I'm going to let David take over from here. Go ahead, talk about your experiences, and feel free to put comments or any questions or comments down in chat. We'll be happy to follow up with them later. All right, David, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Just want to start by saying I'm super jealous of you guys. You have Will. You're about to have Anne. Okay. Like you got Josh. If I had these people when I was in the program at RTC, I mean, I would, man, I am very jealous. So you guys are in good hands. Yeah. So like Will was saying, my name's David. I was a student at RTC. I graduated with an associate's in computer science. Was it last
maanta
year?
waa galaas waa ka hadlayaan bash ka hadlayaan.
Okay, he's muted. Sorry, I wasn't sure if someone's talking to me. Yeah, so I graduated with an associate's in computer science last year from RTC, and then I went on to Western Governors University. I am finishing my bachelor's in cybersecurity in the next 6 to 9 months. And that one's actually been kind of fun because I got a lot of certifications. And so I got like the A plus, Project Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus, that stuff. I think there's some other stuff I can't really remember. I'm doing the Pen Test Plus, the ISC squared Certified Ethical Hacker. Um, there's other stuff. I can't remember what all it is. But right after I finished, actually, let me back up a little bit. My second quarter at RTC, I was looking for a job because I needed bus money to get to school. I lived in Renton, but it was like it was uphill both ways. Let's just say that to get there from where I lived, I had to go down into downtown and then up the hill. Not very fun. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to walk that. So I needed bus money, and that's when I found out about the LRCC, the Learning Resource and Career Center. That's in Building C. I think what is it, room 102? Do I still know that? I think that's right. And
Basement?
no,
Ground floor?
yeah, on Building C. It is, yeah, it's like at the end of campus. And so right there, they have a bunch of different cool stuff going on. I'm sure there's more now than there was when I was there. But when I first started, I was an English tutor. So I was tutoring other students, just helping out with like English if they're writing a paper. I do proofreading, and then I added some more things in there. So I started tutoring, American government, contemporary world issues, computer basics. I never took the class, but the instructor kept sending students to me anyway. So I would get like students coming in, and I wasn't supposed to be helping them if I hadn't taken the class and passed. But the instructor was the one sending them. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And then I started tutoring computer science after I started that program because I was, when I first started, a Running Start student. So if you're familiar with the Running Start program, essentially you come in during your last 2 years of high school and you essentially take college classes at a local college or university. And I think there are 3 different states that have it, Washington being one of them. And so I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to get the government to pay for me to go to school. And so about a year in, I found out that I could actually join one of the programs. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to do computer networking. And so I signed up, got on the wait list, and ended up getting an invite for the computer network technology program. And then right as I was getting started, I was like, hang on, I'm not so sure about this. And then I switched to computer science like the week before the first quarter started. So like right at the last second there. And Ren, I'm not sure if any of you have had classes with Ren. I know first quarter I had a network, I think it was a networking class with Ren Tarvin. He's absolutely great. And so he kept giving me a hard time because, you know, I left his program. How dare I? But no, that was super fun. I think I made the right choice. Not that there was really a wrong choice there, honestly. But going on there, I was able to do that first full year of the computer science program and have the state pay for it, which was amazing. I ended up finishing that, and then I went on to the second year. That one I did have to pay for myself, but just from working at the LRCC, I was able to make enough to pay for it. So that was great. I finished, I got my associate's degree, and I had no debt. That was something I was very excited about, and I don't think you can do that at a lot of places. So that's something pretty cool about RTC. Right around the time I was finishing, I was like, okay, I need to find a full-time job, because as great as the LRCC is, being a student employee, you're only allowed to work a certain number of hours. Will, you know what I'm talking about, and you know what I'm talking about. And it's there's just a limit to how much you can work in order for you to be classified as a student employee. And I was, you know, talking to some people, and one of them, his name is Fu. He actually, I think, still works at the LRCC once or twice a week. He's been there since it first started. He just does that as his side gig. So he does that basically for fun, just a little bit of extra money. But he works at another company, which is a Microsoft vendor. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with like what vendors are, but in general, it's a company or person that provides a service to another company or person. So in this case, the service in question was incident and crisis management for Microsoft's Commerce and Ecosystems platform. So that's all of their stuff, whether that be like purchasing, catalog, their storefronts, Xbox games, entitlement. If you ever get like those long codes that you have to like type in to redeem like a token, all that stuff is there as well. I think it's around what was it, 600 to 900 different services, each service having multiple teams under it. So it was a big old thing. But the company we worked for helped to manage those incidents. So when something breaks, something isn't working on the back end, it was our job to make the engineering teams wake up in the middle of the night and fix it as quickly as possible so customers weren't impacted. So not the most fun job at certain times, but other times it was pretty fun. So after I'd been there for about a year, yeah, so I started in June. No, I started in May, actually. So I started right before I finished the program, the computer science program at RTC. And after about a year there, I started looking for other jobs. As much as I like that job, vendor jobs tend not to pay as well as actually working for the company. Because as the way you can think about it is, you know, if you're working directly for the company, they pay you and you get to keep all of that. If you're working for another company that works for them, they pay that company something and then they probably keep some of it for themselves and then give some of it to you, right? They can decide how much they want to actually give to you. And so in that case, we weren't getting as big of a cut as if we had worked directly for the company. And so, you know, I was looking actually to see if I could switch over to Microsoft. That was my original idea. I was like, okay, I want to stay on the same team. I really like the people I'm working with. I think it's, you know, it's an awesome thing in general, but I want to see if I can move over to the FTE side, the full-time over at Microsoft, rather than the vendor side. And I wasn't getting a lot of progress. I wasn't able to get a meeting with the person in charge of that. And then when I was talking to the other people who were doing that job, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'll talk to my manager." Or at one point, right before I left, there was actually an opening for a few different positions on that team, and they told me to apply. And I was like, okay, looking at this, it has certain requirements I don't quite meet. I think it was like a certain number of years of experience with cloud technologies, and it wanted you to have like 2 or 3, and I only had 1. And so I was like, okay, do you think this is going to be a problem? And they're like, no, go ahead and apply anyway. So I applied, and then I got rejected a day later. but it's you do what you can. So unfortunately, I think it was just automatically rejected because I put no, I don't have X number of years of experience in the survey. So there's nothing I could really do there. There wasn't an email I could contact. But I was like, okay, well, I'll try again later. That's what I was thinking at that point. Now, I, while working there, had started working on my LinkedIn. I'm not sure how many of you have a LinkedIn account, but it's an amazing thing, and I love it. So basically what LinkedIn is, it's kind of just a social media network, but for work stuff. And so there's still tons of memes and random stuff going on there, but it's usually more professional, more focused on the workplace. And so by creating one of those accounts and starting to add different people to my network, I was able to see them sharing posts about job openings and things like that. So one of the people I had added was an employee. Oh, you posted my LinkedIn there. Feel free to connect with me on there. One of the FTEs on my team had moved over to Amazon, and he was doing a similar job, not quite the same. That one was, I think it's called a service development engineer, something I'd never heard of before. But so over there, he was working on their incident management platform at Amazon. And that's basically for Amazon Web Services, all of their major infrastructure that they have going on. And I think that job was about 70% development, scripting, coding, just kind of trying to automate as much as possible of that process. And then about 30% crisis management. So that's, again, when things break, you get to be the one to fix it or tell other people to fix it, which is sometimes more fun. Because what's fun about that is that if it doesn't get fixed on time, you're not the one in trouble. So, you get the praise, but as long as you can do your part of the job, you'll be good, which is, it's fun. Sometimes we like to joke that it's the ultimate middleman job, because we will escalate to other teams. We'll make them join the bridge, and we'll take notes of what's going on. We'll send out communications to executives, things like that. But we don't actually do the fixing. We might say, hey, have you tried doing this? But we're not logging in. We're not actually changing things. We're going to let them do that. But so that job, like I said, it was kind of 70% development, 30% crisis management. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty interesting. But looking at the requirements, I don't think I really qualify for that. I don't have like half of this stuff. And so I reached out to that person who I had worked with previously, and I said, hey, I saw you had this opening. I saw you've had it for like a few months now. It's been open because this is the second time you posted it. I know I don't meet all of the requirements right now, but what do I need to do to meet those other requirements? And so he was like, hey, that's great question. Let me reach out to my manager and see if, he could set up a meeting or see if he could maybe open up a lower level position. And so a few days later, he says, yeah, so I just talked to my manager. He wants to set up an informational interview. I was like, okay, I have no idea what that means. And so he said, okay, yeah, basically an informational interview is like the least, not professional, that's not the word, invasive type of interview, where you basically just get to ask all the questions you want about the job, but it doesn't, there's no chance of you getting a job offer just from that, right? Like it's not an actual interview. You'd still have a full interview. You haven't applied for the job yet, but you get to ask questions about the job, see if it's something you're interested in, and how you stack up against what they're expecting. And so I reached out to his manager, and I said, hey, I'm David. I talked to you about, or I talked to, what was his name? Oh, right, Will. It's the other Will. Yeah. I was talking to Will, and he said to reach out to you, and so we set up a little call there and kind of discuss what was going on there. And he said, "Hey, I don't think you're going to be able to meet this bar right now because we're looking for a higher level position, basically like a senior, and then like a whatever would be above senior, so an L5 and an L6 at Amazon uh, for these roles. And you only have 1 year of experience outside of school. That's not really quite what we're looking for there. But I want to see if I can add a new role because while you aren't ready to kind of pick up and do all this right out of the box, if we have the bandwidth to add another role, then one of the things Amazon does is hire and develop the best. So he wanted to open up a new role for me and then have that extra space for me to be able to ramp up and learn what I need to be able to do for that job. Unfortunately, he didn't have the headcount. So he was like, yeah, sorry. I reached out to my manager's manager. We can't do that right now. But there are a lot of other open roles at Amazon. So maybe you should take a look at that because once you're in at Amazon, you can more easily move around to different teams, different roles. And so I was like, okay, I'll think about it. And then I ended up looking, and I saw this one job that it's a program I've never heard of before. It's called AWS Tech U. And so it was something I was like, I have never heard of that once in my life. But basically what it is, it's what they call an accelerated development program. It's basically like you're going back to school and they're training you for a few different roles. So one of them is the solutions architect role. One is the customer solutions manager. I think another one is the professional services consulting. I think those are the three. There may be one more. I can't remember. But so each of those roles has a different role at Amazon, or specifically Amazon Web Services. And instead of, normally it's something you'd have to, oh, thank you, Will. Yeah, that's the tech you there. And so instead of you having to get all that experience and, like for solutions architecture, for example, that's something that normally people have like 5-10 years of experience before they move over to. It's not something you start out with. In TechU, it's essentially it's a 48-week program that gives you all the training and teaches you all the things for you to be able to do that role with basically no experience. And so all that whole time while you're being trained, you get paid basically the same rate you would normally get paid doing that job, which being Amazon is fairly high. That's a good pay right there. And so I was looking at it and I saw 0 to 2 years of experience. In the resume, I saw, or in the job description, I saw associate's degree or higher. I was like, hang on, I have one of those. And so I decided, I'm going to go ahead and apply for this. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? And so I apply for it. And then I get an email a few days later saying, hey, sorry, it looks like you're still in school and this is a full-time job. So, you might not work out for you. Sorry, we're going to go ahead and reject your application. I was like, okay. Oh no. So like, you know what? I might as well try. So I responded to the email and I said, hey, I am still in school. This is true. But I have been in school for the last year while doing crisis management at Microsoft, and it says you only need an associate's degree. And so then again, later that same day, I get an email back saying, oh yeah, that's great. I'll go ahead and move you on to the next step. Expected email for an online assessment. So I went through and I got this invitation for an online assessment. I went through that. And because I had that software development experience, the crisis management experience, and then in my bachelor's program, like I said, I got that A+, Project Plus, Network Plus, Security Plus. I had a lot of experience in these different technical domains that they're kind of focusing on. And so I was able to complete that technical assessment. It's basically just a test about these like different technical areas. So I think it's like networking, security, web and app technologies. I can't remember what the other ones are. And then another one was kind of like a prioritization and like just working in general sort of simulation where you have like emails coming in and you have to choose which one you'd prioritize, which one of these things is the most important for you to respond to, things like that. And, I finished that test, took about an hour, maybe a little less, and then submitted that. And I got an email later that day saying, congratulations, you did well on that. We're going to go ahead and send you on to a loop at Amazon. And so Amazon, the way they do interviews, instead of you having, one interview with one or two people just asking you questions, they do it a little different. They have what's called a loop, where you'll have back-to-back interviews with different people. And so most of them will be doing the same role, or the manager for that role. And then one person is going to be the bar raiser. The bar raiser is someone who's from a different team or even a different organization. They might not even do the same job, but their job is to make sure that you are better than 50% of the people currently doing the job, which is a really high bar to hit. You have to be able to show that you're better, or that you have the capability to be better than 50% of the people currently doing the job, that's a lot. That's something else. So I had 2 technical interviews where they're asking questions about those technical domains. So questions like, what's a cider block? Or, hey, when would you use TCP versus UDP? Things like that for networking. Or, have you worked with any JavaScript frameworks before? What's the difference between React and Vue, for example? And so just ask questions like that. And the answer, by the way, which I totally forgot at the time, is that one's a framework and one is a library. But again, don't ask me which one I've forgotten already. Same thing when they were talking about cider blocks. It's spelled CIDR. I knew the answer, but I wasn't completely certain. And so I think he could hear it in my voice, the interviewer. He could tell that I wasn't certain. And so he was trying to be nice. He's like, oh, maybe if I spell it out, he'll know what I'm saying. And so he typed it out. And then I took that as him telling me I was going down the wrong path. And I was like, oh no, I think that's a hint. I better change my answer. And so I told him something completely different that was wrong. When I later looked it up after the interview was over, and I was right the first time. So they're not trying to trick you up. But yeah, so that was a mistake. But yeah, so I finished up all the interviews. I had one with the hiring manager that had a presentation portion where you basically, I think all the advice they give you, all they say is present on a technical topic of your choice for 10 minutes, which is very vague. And it's intentionally vague, but it's also very vague. And so I think I picked like a game hosting platform that I'd worked on, and kind of explain how it worked, and kind of the containerization of the different games, and how people were able to connect to their specific game servers, and back and forth. But so I presented that, answered some questions for a bit, and then it was mostly, behavioral questions after that. And Amazon's behavioral questions are focused on their leadership principles. That's something I could pull up. I'm betting Will's pulling it up too, but I'm going to just pull it up as well, so that I can have that list in front of me. So they are customer obsession, ownership, invent and simplify, are right a lot, learn and be curious, hire and develop the best, insist on the highest standards, think big, bias for action, frugality, earn trust, dive deep, have a backbone, disagree and commit, deliver results, strive to be Earth's best employer, and success and scale bring broad responsibility. So those are their principles there, which I just put in the chat. Gotcha, Will. And so, it's questions like, for example, under, let's see, customer obsession, they might ask you something like, tell me about a time you worked with a customer, or what was the most challenging situation you had with the customer and how did you handle it? Or for learn and be curious, tell me about a time when you were working on a project and you didn't know how to proceed. What did you do? For, let's see, have a backbone, disagree and commit. Tell me about a time when you worked on a project and your team wanted to go in a different direction than you. What did you do? Or something like that. So they just ask these questions that kind of try to get that answer, as far as like, how can you show that leadership principle in your answer, is really what you're trying to do. Whatever it is, if it's earn trust, you need to talk about, it says leaders listen attentively, speak candidly, and treat others respectfully. They're vocally self-critical, even when doing so is awkward or embarrassing. They don't believe on they do not believe that their or their team's body odor smells of perfume. They benchmark themselves and their teams against the best. And so it's, one part of that was during the interview, they kept saying, hey, by the way, we don't expect you to know everything. Okay, so it's okay to say I don't know, because again, that earns trust. That's showing that you're not going to just be like, I'm going to make something up. You're saying, hey, I don't know this one. And that for them is saying, okay, this person isn't going to try and lie to us and pretend that they know something. They're just going to be honest and let us know that they don't know. Because when you're actually working with someone, it's a lot easier if you know that they're not going to be kind of going out there and saying, hey, I'm going to pretend I know what's going on. They'd rather you just ask for help if you need help. And so that's part of that. So after the interview, about a week later, I get an email from the recruiter saying, hey, the team would like to offer you the position. However, they don't have the headcount they originally planned on. So I'm going to check with a different team and get back to you, see if I can get you in somewhere else. And so then another full week later, agonizing week later, I did get another email letting me know the offer letter would be there the next day. And then the next day I got the offer letter, which I accepted. And so now I've been working at Amazon for the last 3 months. Amazon Web Services as a solutions architect and an associate solutions architect in their TechU training program. It has been absolutely amazing. But yeah, so that's kind of what that process was like. I am on a completely different team than I originally interviewed with. So none of my interviewers are from the team or even the organization that I'm actually going to. So that's a little funny. Originally was me with Cloud Intelligence, which is kind of a compete. So when people are trying to decide between different cloud providers, it's their job to help the customers understand the differences or why they might want to go with a certain one. And instead, I'm with kind of more a generalist team, which works out. It's still got a job, but I was pretty interested in that one. So we'll see if I end up switching over there at some point if they have the headcount. Yeah, so that's basically my story there. Will kind of ran through that pretty quickly. By pretty quickly, I mean like 30 whole minutes. So thank you all for listening. Yeah, do you have any questions? Not sure kind of what we want to do here next.
Well, to take a little pressure off of you, I told my programming too that I would go ahead and do midterm review with them afterwards. So it's not like you better fill up another hour and a half. But tell us a little bit about what you do within your bounds. What is it you do? Like, what does your job entail and things like that?
Yeah, so right now, because I'm still in the TechU program, I'm basically just in training. So like we use Canvas. Okay, that gives you an example. So I'm still using Canvas. I have modules I go through. I have these things called demo days, which are basically like I get a scenario saying, this is what's going on with the customer. And then my job is to develop a solution for them. So an architecture saying, hey, this is what that might look like. You want to use this service, this service, this service. And then I will make a presentation and go over it with them, explaining what all the services are, how they work, and then present the architecture, answer any questions, etc. So go through all of that, kind of like I would with a customer, except it's another person doing the job. So doing that, and then I'm about to be working on my capstone project, which I need to decide on by the end of this week. So wish me luck. Part of my team is like out of the state right now on flights. So hopefully tomorrow we'll all be in the same place, or at least in the same state and available at the same time, so we can have like a call and kind of figure out what's going on there. Luckily, I think that the deadlines did get extended a bit. So we have until the end of the month to finish getting all of our the word. They're called something else at Amazon, but if I say that, you're not going to have any idea what I'm talking about. Proposals. We'll get our proposals together and present those. But so for now, we're basically just getting ready for that, and then going through these technical modules, which it's everything from basic cloud concepts to networking or security or IoT, Internet of Things, or machine learning. And so all those different areas, we're getting that kind of foundational level understanding, so that we can then, once I finish this, I'll be moving on. And then what my job is, I'm going to be a solutions architect. So I'm going to be working with customers, not as much directly, but I'll be working with an account manager. And then when that account manager is working with their customer and their customer has technical questions they don't know how to respond to, or they're like, hey, I'm trying to move my entire application from on-prem, so they have like their own data center that they're working in, and they're like, this is getting really expensive. I don't want to keep paying for this. I want to move this to the cloud, so I only have to pay variable expenses instead of capital expenditure. Then I can come in as that more technical consultant and work with maybe the CEO or chief technical officer and say, hey, this is the best way to do that. This is how you can make sure it's cost effective. This is how you can make sure it's secure. And this is how you can make sure that it's fault tolerant. So if one of your servers go down, or if you do an update, you don't want to, if you do a bad update, you don't want that to bring down your entire application. I mean, imagine if, they did an update to Amazon.com and it just went down everywhere. That would be terrible. And there are tools in place to make sure that doesn't happen. And so it's my job to kind of help explain that and show them how to use those in a more technical way.
He is not going to show the work because he has some very impressive work. Let's just say he is working hard for the pay he gets, but he does an amazing like system architecture. You're saying how it's like you will do the research and find the systems put into place to make it so that you can get the results for the user. And it's absolutely wonderful. And you do amazing PowerPoints, if I do say so.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So through your time, your school, your experience time, what is it? I will admit this can kind of be a leading question. What do you feel you did to help yourself, like with your skills and improve? What is it that you did to ensure success in the things that in your education career?
I think one of the things I did was, well, it's not even something I did. It's just that I was a very curious person. And so I like to learn everything, everything that I can, how it works, why it does what it does. And luckily I had people like Will around and Josh. And so when I was in my computer science program, if I was ever, a little bored, or I was going over something I already understood, then they would just give me random other stuff to work on, right? And so things like that. Or then when I got to my capstone, I was like, okay, I want to do something that's like a little more challenging than this. And so I went and went a step beyond and taught myself how to use React.js to build like a ticketing platform. Inside of that, using that and then Google Firebase for the database and like user authentication, which I still only mostly understand how that worked. But that's what tutorials are for. So all that stuff. I think it's a lot of that, and then a lot of reaching out to people and asking for more information or for help, or just building connections with other people who are technical or who just know what they're talking about.
He was always happy to talk to you, even though I was like, I think I know what you're talking about. So I cannot understate how smart David was then. Like, he was still talking about things that blew my mind. I was like, this guy knows what's going on. So, but yeah, you were always working on something, and that was fascinating, and you were excited to show it off, and that was great. Because I remember you sending me links to your like real-time chat application using APIs, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I have a guess, but the beautiful thing is you also explained it. Like, that's a big thing that we at the LRCC really have in common, is we enjoy that experience of explaining things and going through and getting that knowledge, knowing, oh yeah, we can do this, but we know it well enough and love to share it with others. So yeah.
I do think that that's another thing that really helped me, was because I was a tutor, I got a lot of experience explaining things to people. And so that kind of experience there just knowing how to take something more technical and explain it to someone who doesn't understand it or didn't understand it the first time, maybe trying to find a different way to explain it. That experience also helped a lot. Especially, then I take that and then I go over to Microsoft and then I'm talking to people about stuff I've never heard of before. A lot of that. I mean, that was my first time ever hearing really anything about the cloud in practice. Like I'd heard of it. I knew that the cloud was a thing somewhere that things go to in the internet. But that was my first time seeing what it actually looked like or how it actually worked. And then going from that, again, I still had basically no idea how it worked when I left there. And then going into Amazon, I learned a lot more with a lot of the training they gave me. So I got the Certified Cloud Professional and the Solutions Architect Associate from Amazon. Those are both certifications there. And so doing that, I think I got a lot of better understanding as far as that goes. But again, it was a lot of asking questions and trying to explain things to other people. So when you find yourself having to explain something to someone else, you really have to understand it. And that's the best part there is if you're a tutor, and you're explaining something to someone, even if you don't understand it, you're going to understand it by the time you're done. That's the way I'd put it.
That really is the way it is. And the thing is, the best tutors were, I mean, and this leads into the whole leadership principles things is if you really want to teach the subject, you're willing to say, I don't really know what this is. I will always remember the very first person I tutored was a student from Lake Washington. We have an agreement where we'll tutor them too. And they came and they're like, I do not understand MySQL. And we teach SQL Server here. So I said, me too. But I was like, but you know what? We're going to figure this out together. So he actually left for the day and came back. And I spent that night just going through all the materials, trying to figure out. And the knowledge I gained from that night, I still use to this day. And I just remember him coming in the next day and I was like, this, and I wrote out a select statement and I was like, this is how it works. I just remember him going, that makes sense. And I'm like, I know. And it really is like, that's how when you can explain things, that's how you actually have an understanding and you quickly learn the gaps in your knowledge because you can tell when you're floundering. Because I'm quick to be like, I'm not exactly sure what I should be saying here. So let's Google search this nonsense. Oh,
Well, I just sent you a
let's.
link there. That
Yes,
is
you
the
did.
AWS Architecture Center. And so they have examples of like reference architecture and best practices there. So that's the sort of stuff that I work on. If you want to pick a random one of those, I will do my best to explain it.
Um, can you because this has more words than all of them, so I guess establishing your cloud foundation on AWS.
Oh, okay. So actually, if you scroll down a bit more,
Oh, there's things.
yeah, there's actual things down below that.
There's more
Yeah.
than three.
Yeah, and
So
you can
so
sort those. So if you want to look at, actually, go ahead and click on the second content type there, the reference architecture diagrams, and then you can choose like technology categories. So if you want to look at like front end and mobile or media services, any of that stuff, just go ahead and pick something, and then
actually, now that you say it, front end and mobile is going to work well for our program. So yes,
okay,
please do
I'll click on
explain.
that. All right, let's see. Do you
Do you mind if
want
I
modern? Okay,
put this online for
no, that's
others
totally
to
fine.
see?
This is public. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so options are Read for Me, which is a web app that utilizes cloud for enabling the visually impaired to hear paper documents. There's Open Banking, so it uses APIs from third parties to help you implement open banking regulations. Mobile apps for location-based engagement, and then modern serverless. I actually think this is the best one. Modern serverless mobile/web application architecture integrated with CI/CD and analytics use case. Man, that's a lot
Explain
of
that.
words. Okay,
Explain that.
let's do that one. Okay. Oh boy. Let me. Okay, this might be a bit much. Let me go ahead and pull this up, and then I'm not sure if I can screen share here. I will give it a
That you
try.
should have the power.
Okay, let me see. Like, can you see this?
It shows, yes. Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
this is the sort of stuff that I work on. Usually not quite this crazy, but this sort of thing in general. So what I would normally do is I would break this up into different pieces. As you can see here, they have like CI/CD and analytics kind of like separated from everything else. But generally, what you're really thinking about is going to start right here. So first off, you have the actual mobile or web client. So this is the user right here on their computer loading the website. That's going to go here to Amazon Cognito. Amazon Cognito is a service that basically does authentication. So instead of you having to figure out how to set up all the logins and managing passwords and making sure everything's secure and all that, you can use Cognito, and then it'll handle all of that, right? And you can do all the like login with whatever. All that stuff just works. And then it gives you a special token that you can use then to show like which user is connected. And so you take that, and then you go over to Amplify. Amplify is a pretty cool service we have that lets you deploy web applications, mobile applications with very few clicks. So instead of managing the servers on the back end or the scaling, any of that stuff, it'll handle all of that for you. All you have to worry about is just updating the code, which is great. So then you can go over to AppSync, which has these different, essentially, that's a service I'm not as familiar with. But it looks like that one basically forwards your data to different areas based on probably the, like, actually, I'm not too sure about this part. I'm going to be honest. That part I'm not too sure about. I haven't finished all my training. I've got a few months left. But so then
back
here,
after his training and rectified himself.
Yeah. But so it looks like you're using DynamoDB, which is a database we have there, and Lambda, which is a serverless computing thing. So basically, with this one, you don't provision a server. You just write the code, and then it manages all the scaling, all the servers. So you just give it the code snippet, and it runs it. You don't have to worry about anything else. You only pay based on the number of runs and how long it takes, stuff like that. But so it does the code, and then it stops existing. So there's no like, I'm going to start up a new instance for this one thing. It does everything on its own. It's real nice, real easy. And then Elasticsearch is basically a very efficient way to search your stuff. And so, yep, that's all there. And it looks like that's probably just for your authentication potentially. Yeah. So talking about the JWT token, which is what you're using over here for Cognito for your authentication. And then it's going over, it's saying, hey, HTTP. So that's your hypertext transfer protocol, which is where your web stuff is going over. Sending that over here. Again, Lambda, probably running the backend for the website. So only when someone sends stuff to your website, does it actually have something on the back end to answer, right? So you're not basically sitting there. If you get like one person connecting every hour, it's not sitting there for the rest of the hour waiting. It'll just spin something up when it's actually being used. All this other stuff, very exciting. I'm going to skip most of that. This is getting too long already. But you can see over here, CI/CD tools. So this is stuff for version control, actually building your code. So normally, if you think like Java, for example, Java doesn't just run if you double click on the file, right? And so you have to actually put it into something that's runnable and then deploy that. So here you can see it's being deployed, and that'll come over to Amplify eventually and send it out to all of the instances. It'll replace the old ones with new ones with your update. But it does that in a way that's kind of staggered, so that if the update goes through in one spot and it breaks things, it doesn't keep deploying it. It just reverts that one area. The rest are all unaffected, and that one gets brought back to the old version anyway. All that's part of the code pipeline, right? Over here, you got a bunch of fun stuff going on. And then looks like that's all going to S3, the simple storage service, which is an object-based storage service here, which basically, instead of storing things the way you'd store them on a computer, you store them based on each individual file. And so those can be whatever size. But the thing with that is, if you want to change one part of a file, you have to change the entire file, right? But it's also super cheap. So this storage here, it's crazy cheap. and they have things called like intelligent tiering, which will, based on your usage patterns, automatically put stuff into like lower tiers that cost less, but take a little bit longer to get your stuff. So you can put it in like uh, an archive basically. And depending on the stuff, you can have stuff like, maybe if you have files that for regulatory compliance, you have to keep them for a number of years, but you're never accessing them, you can pay a lot less to keep them in basically cold storage where they're not being accessed very much. It's not going to be as snappy, but you know, it's all there. Then it goes over to Glue, which is an ETL platform for big data. And it's extract, transform, and load. So it takes your data, kind of categorizes it, says, hey, this is what's going on here. And then you can query it using Amazon Athena, which is basically a way for you to query that data using standard SQL. And then QuickSight lets you visualize it. So that's how you're doing the analytics here. Probably all of your like clickstream data. So seeing where users are clicking on your data, which pages they're using the most, all of that is getting sent here to S3. But it's like all sorts of different types of data. How are you supposed to read that? You use Glue to categorize it and help you know what's going on there. And then Athena can query it and QuickSight can visualize it. So that's kind of what's happening there. I'm not going to go through the rest of this because, again, it's very complicated and taking a lot of time, but I think you get the idea.
That's awesome. And that really shows like the breadth of knowledge you have now, because these are, yeah, I've seen you, like you are always really knowledgeable on a lot of different skill sets in general, and then seeing how you've grown and you've gained knowledge of all these different systems and how they interact. And even going back to the leadership principle, you were willing to say, I'm not really sure what this does. I believe it, but I'm not going to mislead you. That's a great thing to call out, because for anyone who doesn't know, in our program, it is absolutely okay for us to say we are wrong now, because we're always learning. So embrace it. Be like, hey, I'll go learn later. This is what we all do. Anyone who's a programmer, if you say I've learned something once and never gone back or tried to learn anything else again,
it's a lie.
You worry me.
W3 schools. Gotta have that bookmark, you know what I'm
saying? Right. Like yeah. I have W3 schools on all W3 schools and Geeks for Geeks. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but as I tell my students, it's like we Google search things all the time, but we're never Google searching the full answer on something, because that's not how we roll. What we're doing is we're looking for that chunk that we're going to use inside of our bigger project, because that's how it all links together.
Yeah. And another disclaimer that was the first time I'd seen that, so I may have, if I actually like had more time to look at that, I'd probably be able to explain it a little bit better.
See, I thought you were like, challenge me, pick something, and you were like serving it up. You were like, I think this one would work. So I thought you were giving me one that you were well prepared on.
No.
Hey, no worries.
No, I was just saying that one looks interesting. So wide breadth of things that are a little more in line with the program being serverless mobile and web applications rather than like text to speech. This is a little less specific to what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. And it's important to note, like, there's how much actually goes on, because like right now you guys, like, this is programming 1, programming 2. What you guys have experienced is C#, .NET framework, and WinForms. There's a few more things than those things, but here's the thing to call out. Don't be intimidated by this. Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on, but these are all just different. You don't need to know all of this, right? Like, David's job is to help kind of explain it and find the right architectures for things. Doesn't mean David's going to know how to build all these things himself, unless you do, and I won't put that past you.
Basically my job is to have enough understanding to know how to use, by the end of this training program, all of AWS's servers, and they have like 200 something. So it's there's a lot of them. But my job is to know how to use at least most of them, all the popular ones for sure. And they have some ones that are like ground station, which does satellite processing, like processing satellite imagery. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to probably use that one too often. But, I have, at least I know that it exists. And then there are specialists for these different services. So I can say, hey, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me set up a follow-up meeting with a specialist who can kind of dive a little deeper on that.
Absolutely. Because we are going to be touching on so many different aspects of our app. And like, even as you guys progress on, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to do like I'm going to do mobile development. Well, that means you're going to have front end where you're building HTML, CSS. That's great, but that may not be your passion. That doesn't mean you won't be dealing with it. You can be a back end guy dealing with code or database. And then it's like, even if you build the website, maybe you don't like design, so you're going to have another team for design. You don't to try to specialize in everything, it just makes your life a whole lot harder. Find that thing you're really passionate about and or pays a lot of money, call out. And then know the people you can go to. Like, I know I'm not going to be talking about system architecture or AWS stuff because I have David, who I'm going to be like, hey, I need this information, because he's far more knowledgeable. This is his knowledge base on stuff. The friends in game dev, friends in like, I'll go to Josh to talk MVC. I'm going to go to Ann to talk to about SQL, things like that. This is why expanding your network is also so important. So that way you have these people that have their passions and their specializations, and that's not all on your shoulders. Because yes, we have been up till 4 a.m. trying to problem solve stuff. That's called being a programmer.
Yeah, and again, I just want to like, even at Amazon, they do a really good job of uh, not understating the importance of uh, networking. Like all the time, they'll be like, "Hey, got to make sure you're like reaching out to people, all that stuff." And like a few weeks ago, I went to the all hands meeting, which, you know, what do you know? I got an invite to that. That was pretty cool because they only had a few hundred people out of the thousands and thousands of employees. Uh, so I got to go to the meeting center. They had a pre-show networking hour where you basically you get there a little early. They have breakfast bites, which were pretty good. Then coffee, and some like, yeah, there's some fun stuff there. And then you basically go around and introduce yourself to other people, other roles, just get to know each other a little bit. And you have a whole hour for that before anything even starts. It's like, what kind of company goes and is like makes a big enough deal about networking? They're going to add that just for the people who are in person at this random event. You know, it's again, it's a really important thing that I think people don't always think about, is just like networking and like building out your network of people you know who know other things. Because like what I do when I'm building up my network, I never want to be the smartest person I know because that means I don't know a lot of smart people anymore. Okay. Like everyone that I know and I like to interact with is smarter than me in some way. Okay. That way I know I'm always learning something. I'm always growing more. And I mean, that's why I got like Will here and here. Cause like, man, they're insane. You know what I mean? Like there's, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like we seek out, like if you're to be a programmer is to constantly seek out that knowledge. And we love people who also are seeking out that knowledge, right? We love seeing this growth and everything and seeing what we can do with it. So, and I want everyone here to know, because I've talked with all of you. I have talked with all of you, and you all have very much have this capability. You're all interesting to talk to. It's hard to get out. It's hard. And everybody is as dynamic as David. I will say it. He is like one of the most personable people I know. If there are many things we should learn, but definitely take away, just be yourself, be dynamic, go out there and start talking to people and be interested in them. Because when you find out, like, I'm not sure what David's saying half the time when he talks about this stuff, but I'm interested in it. I'm interested in it. And I know many of you probably think the same thing when you hear me lecturing. Holler out to my students. Be We're not the guys in the basement anymore, barring our classroom. We are think about how the people you want to work with in a team, you would want to be able to talk to them, and you want to be that person that people want to talk to also. So, and that's going to get you far. Seriously, a lot of my connections have also come from meetups, talking to people, different events I've gone to, and just sharing an interest. When I go to the rock climbing gym, because it's based out of Bellevue, a lot of people from Microsoft are there, and it's really easy to strike up a conversation about code. So, right, like you are now in an industry that you can do that. You could actually just be like, hey, I do this. And they're like, really, I'm on a team with this. And all of a sudden you start making those network connections. So David's absolutely right. Get out there and talk to people. Go get
One
those delicious
funny,
bites.
yeah, one funny story like that. I actually went over. One of my coworkers had a housewarming party, so I went over there, and his roommate, was telling us about what he did. He's a backend engineer over at Microsoft, and he started talking about what he was doing, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, we were talking about something about Microsoft. I think that they have free drinks." So that's one thing that's kind of nice if you're on Microsoft campus. They have like anything. If you want soda, if you want like chocolate milk, almond milk, they will have
Like
it.
an all
Okay.
country buffet.
Yeah, they have all of the drinks you could possibly want. And so beverages, all of them, right? And coffee, of course, most important drink that exists. So all that good stuff, and it's free for all their employees, right? They've got other food, but that you have to pay for, but the drinks are free. Amazon, not so much. Amazon, like I have to pay for parking. Not right now though, because it's suspended. They'll pay for part of it, and right now the other fees are suspended during COVID. But hopefully that's going to continue. I'm enjoying not paying for parking. But yeah, so we were talking about that, and then because we were talking about that, he was actually like, "Oh, what did you do at Microsoft?" And I started telling him about what I was doing, and then he was like, I was saying it pretty generally, right? I was like, "Oh yeah, I did like incident management," and he was like, "The OSOC?" I was like, "What? You know what the OSOC is?" Because it's I've never talked to anyone before who like knew what that was, what incident management was even. And so I get there, and he's like, "You guys are the best," and it was like such a weird random moment. Apparently, he's a backend engineer on one of the teams that we support. And so the rest of the party, he was like, when new people got there, he was like, he's like, "Oh, this guy, he's part of the OSOC." It's the funniest thing. But yeah, so it's just like the most random places you'll meet people, and then now you have that other connection. If I ever need to talk to a backend engineer at Microsoft on their purchase experience team, I know one, and I know how to contact him. You know what I mean? If I ever have a question about how to implement the back end of a payment service, well, I know who to ask.
And that's it. Like you don't know, like your journey has already changed so much, right? Like even 6 months ago, like
Oh yeah,
3 years ago, we're all LRCC. So we don't know these amazing. We surround ourselves with amazing people. They go on to do amazing things. Like when I was with the Oculus Launchpad, I remember reaching out to someone, Kelly, who was a part of the Oculus Launchpad. It's a nationwide thing, but she was based out of Seattle, so I reached out to her, and she did like VR. She was a VR director. She like created installations, everything. That's already really cool. It was great talking to her. She's gone on to become like an application manager at Microsoft for VR chat or something, right? Like she's off doing things. It's like I lead one of my coworkers on our VR project now works for the company that does Ghost of Tsushima. Another one works for Meta for their VR application stuff. The more people you know, just because you like where they are right now is already, if it's already enough to impress you, imagine where they're going to be in the future, and imagine how rich that tapestry is going to be. So definitely start to know people, because look at your classmates, imagine where they're going to be in like 2 4 years. They're going to be doing amazing stuff too. Can't wait to see that if I do
yeah.
my job correctly. Oh, that is absolutely wonderful. Well, we're coming on to an hour here. This has just been a treat and a pleasure. Does anyone in the room or in Zoom have any questions for David before we let him actually go enjoy his Thursday, which he kindly gave up for us after he's been working all day?
Hey, can I say something really quick?
Go for it.
David, I never heard about all this, and when you said that you didn't take no for an answer, and you're like, hey, well, I did this and I'm doing this even when I'm in school, it was just, I was like, yes, because because a lot of times, when you get that no and you're still a student and you don't have as much experience, you kind of just like, oh, maybe this is not for me. And I've had that. So it was really cool that you shared that, and it's just that perseverance, so man,
Yeah,
I'm
and it
excited for
was
you.
just that saying like, the worst they can say is no, but I think I meet all the requirements, so I want to give it the best shot I can. They said the reason why they were rejecting me was because I'm still in school. I'm going to see if I can convince them otherwise. There's no harm. One more thing I'd say is like, uh, even while you're students, connect with all the other people on like on LinkedIn or whatever. Connect with all the other people that you're going to school with, or that you're like your instructors, stuff like that. Because like I even have people over at other like Green River College randomly, and I'll get like job posts on there that they're sharing for their networks, and I'll share those with my networks because I have a bunch of people from RTC or other places like that, and I'll share those job openings that I see, so that if they're interested or they're looking for a job, they can find that. But I even have like I ended up randomly with when I left my last job, my boss, my boss's boss, my boss's boss's boss, and my boss's 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 boss. And so if there's ever an opening anywhere in that range, they're all managers and they're likely to post about that on their LinkedIn. And so then I'll know that there's an opening on that team. And because I've worked with them, I kind of know what the job is, and I can share that with other people in my network. So that's something to be aware of. Is you can always just try send it a connection request. Worst they're gonna do is just say no. So might as well. Best case, you can then see when there's an opening. You can see what they're working on, what they're excited about. They're like sometimes people post about new launches that their team's been working on for a while, stuff like that. You can kind of get a better sense of what it is they're working on, and where to go from there.
That brings up a good point. Control your narrative, right? Like David was always going after it. He was like, so I asked this person, I asked that person, I put myself out there. Because otherwise, think about the narrative of I wrote my resume and I did this, but what if I didn't write my resume right or anything? And now I'm competing with thousands of pieces of paper. We're fighting to stand out. Have that resume, and we have someone who's going to be really good at writing resumes around here. Call out to Anne, because all that stuff needs to be on point. But you want to be able to have that resume and then know that person in the network to hand that resume to, and they'll get it to the right person. What you want to try to do, let's be honest, we want to try to avoid it all coming down to you just sending it to a random HR person and hoping you get through the keyword search, right? Like that thing is going to filter you out for the worst random reasons. Get that network going, get your resume built up, get your projects and your portfolios going, call out to GitHub, love GitHub, and then be a smiling face. Be that knowledgeable person that someone else will vouch for. Because I can say I know all the AWS systems too on my resume. I know, right? Like, okay, cool. Now I have to go prove it, or they're just going to ignore me. So, yes, absolutely.
And
Um,
one more thing, I
yeah.
promise I'll let you get back to, you said you're gonna go through some stuff. But a lot of companies have referrals, right, for employees to refer people they know. And so, like at Amazon, there are two types of referrals. There are referrals for people you know and you want to endorse, and from networking. So people that you don't really know, but you'd still like to refer for a job. And so you can always reach out to someone that's doing a job you're interested in and say, ask questions about the job. And then going from there, you can ask them if you can send them your resume, if it's going to, make sense for that job. You can ask them for a referral. I know I reached out to someone who is, let's see, I think he switched to a different job now, but he was doing security incident management, or something similar. I can't remember exactly what, over at Microsoft, and then I think he went somewhere else after that. But talking to him for a bit, he not only wanted to go through my resume, but he had a bunch of connections in the security org over at Microsoft. He was like, "Hey, let me know if you want me to send your resume over there, if that's something you're interested in." And at the time, I was like, "Okay, I don't really know what I'm doing in cybersecurity yet, so I'm going to pass on that." But that you know you're still getting those offers like, hey, I know people that I can pass your resume on to. Or even last week, I was talking to someone. He's a senior security solutions architect at Amazon. So he's working on again those like more specialized requests related to security on Amazon, Amazon's platform. And so again, he was like, "Hey, yeah, by the way, I've got a bunch of connections." You know, he was telling me about when because I had asked him about when he left for Microsoft and came back. He's like, "Oh yeah, no, if you're interested in that role at Microsoft, if you ever want to switch over there, let me know. I have a bunch of connections. I could probably get you hired over there. Or if you want to come over to my team, let me know. I can reach out to my manager. I'm switching to a different team. I'm going to be a manager. And so my spot's going to be opening up soon. All this stuff. Like, so just reach out to people, ask them some questions. Most people, not most people, but a lot of people, especially if they're already active on LinkedIn, uh, reach out to them. You know, they're probably going to respond, even if it takes them a while. And then, you know, from there, you can ask those questions about that job or about that role, and just have that little bit extra information or potentially other resources or networks.
Fantastic. We could go on. If you see David and I talk, this is just how we roll. Does anyone in the audience have any more questions? All right, all right. Well, again, David, thank you so much. It's been truly a pleasure to hear about your journey. Thank you for coming in. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the feed right now because we're going to go into lecture. But I will make sure to put this lecture up for everyone to have. And again, we've put David's and my LinkedIn in the chat, so feel free to connect with us, talk with us, whatever. And thank you again for all being here.